Standard caveat, this isn't financial advice. This is just the way I'm seeing the market. I am Rangadad, and yeah, let's get into today's review. Just wanted to start today with interesting that we've got a little bit of an uptick in the global liquidity today, or the last 2 days, really, or over the weekend. Typically, it can chop around for a bit, but this has been sustained now for a little bit, suggesting maybe there's some underlying things going on with the economy. But overall, still holding that general downtrend, while the S&P is still kind of going up for the most part. We'll have a look at that in a second anyway. The sorry, just reading something. Stochastic momentum's still down on the daily. We could get a turnaround soon, but for the time being, still down. We've had 3 retests of this 200 EMA now. Big volume today, which is good and bad. If we've had this much volume and we haven't really gone anywhere on the day, chances are it's not going to push much higher than this soon. Chances are we will see more downside, in my opinion. And we are sort of sitting below this big volume area now, or bigger volume area now. So I still think at some stage this 51K mark is a reasonable target. Whether we actually slip through that or not, I don't know. This could end up being a point of significant support. Doesn't seem keen to go up to retest the 20 EMA yet on the daily. And look, it doesn't have to on the way up or on the way down. It can take a while to get there. But beware of, candles like this sucking in a lot of bulls and potentially, sucking up a lot of liquidity on the short side. So, we don't have to retrace to the 20 EMA particularly soon, especially after a very quick drop. These are brutal drops here, but we can do this sort of thing as well. Okay. And as you can see, this 200 EMA is a tough zone for Bitcoin to really break above once it gets below it. It's not something that just happens straight away, typically. All right. So the other obvious thing is the volume, traded volume down here is still a pretty juicy target, I would suspect, for Bitcoin, but I also think it probably needs to take some short liquidity at some stage soon, before it really gets down there, if it gets down there. So let's have a quick look at, so longs are still building. And look, as I said previously, this can build for a long time, even during big drops, okay? But don't necessarily think that this means we're going back to new all-time highs or anything like that. CCI on the 1 hour is just choppy in this range. We are below the zero line though, so that's sort of posturing bearish more than anything. Crypto capital enterprises indicators are still suggesting bearish for the time being. So that's interesting to note. The 15-minute bot that we've got running, it doesn't fire very often, but it did fire overnight. It does have an 87% win rate with pretty good profit factor. It doesn't win all the time, 7% of the time on the short side in the last 6 and a bit months. It has hit a full stop loss, which is this red line here. And it nearly freaking hit that last night as well. So that's an interesting signal. Like, that's a pretty high percentage strike rate. So it's suggesting this is potentially just a bit of consolidation before a bigger move to the downside. And from here, if we move down from here, below the 200 EMA on the 15, below the 50, it's probably going to break this level pretty easily, I would think. It would suggest that the longs are all soaked up. You know, the support in the market, the longs are exhausted basically, and we'll probably go back down there. That wick there is obviously a bit of a target for us, 54,800. You guys know what I think about big wicks on Bitcoin to the downside. They tend to be retraced reasonably soon. So, yeah, I think at this stage, it's pointing in the short term more to the downside, which is a little unfortunate because our freaking 5-minute bot looks like it's been faked out. If we do get a big volume candle through this mid band of this the Bollinger Bands soon, it will get stopped out. Needs to be within 15 bars though, so it needs to be in the next 2 bars. So we'll see how that plays out. I guess one of these is going to work out okay. I actually kind of hope it's the long one at the moment, but we'll see. I would expect this long to only really get up to that point at the moment anyway. If we do break above it, like the volume in this 5-minute candle here is insane. That's one of the biggest volumes we've had in this whole dump. Like, there's got to be buyers in that as well, obviously. So be careful because someone's buying what someone else is selling, but that's a massive volume in 5 minutes. Nearly 10,000 Bitcoin on bybit alone. Trading volume. That was huge. It would have wiped out so many longs that people were putting in along this period here. So yeah, a little bit of sideways action at the moment, not really giving us any clear indication which way it's going. It is below that 200 EMA though, so we would have to have a pretty big candle to the upside to really show me any significant interest there. The good thing is if this did get stopped out, we should have the 15-minute in play. Unfortunately, the 40x, was it the 40x bot? Yeah, I had it set up wrong. So it was only trading 0.6% of the account rather than 6%. So that's my bad. Hopefully all the bugs are out of it now though. But yeah, we did have a pretty good day yesterday. The bot picked up this long here. And this is why I love bots, because I wouldn't have taken that trade. Whilst I wouldn't have taken necessarily this one either, just after that such a big drop into a support level, it wasn't great. It still took profit TP1 in this candle, but yeah, obviously went the wrong way eventually. But yeah, that taking that long into the 200 EMA was surprising that it paid out, but geez, it took off to the upside. So that was a good one. And kind of lucky that we didn't take that one, to be honest. But yeah, the fact that this dropped so quickly and really turned around in the next two candles with still significant volume coming through suggests that someone's really getting interested in Bitcoin around this level here. So we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out. The shorter time frames are not really giving us any confirmation at the moment. Yeah, the Asia session today I think will be interesting. See how that goes. But a very, very choppy day yesterday. Up, down, and all around. So, let's have a quick look at what the general stock market's been doing. Nasdaq is still going up. No real signs of slowing down there. It's not really a point in the charts that I'd be looking to short this either. It's just it's in the bullish control zone on stochastics. This indicator here is, I mean, it suggested take profit back there, but once you're into these sort of levels, it can hold that for quite a while. Nvidia had another decent day, but Nvidia struggling to really break this level for whatever reason at 128.5. I think people are scared of it, to be honest. So the S&P 500, not a bad candle, I guess, but just a bit of a pause, maybe a bit of distribution, accumulation. Equal weight is still flat. Again, just suggesting there's not really more money coming into the market. It's more just the money flow around the market, as I've said previously. IWM is still just trudging sideways, really. Industrials are flat. XLY, XLP looks like it's starting to roll over. So if this does drop and the S&P keeps going up, then it suggests we're in a little bit of a blow off top. I would expect a correction to come reasonably soon after that, just because this is a kind of a measure of the underlying economy in a way. DJR gold ratio is still pretty flat. DAX, yeah, DAX is struggling. Getting a lot of resistance around this level now. Bit of a tweezer formation too there. That could lead to a bit of downside on DAX. Dollar, yeah, flat really. Like nothing to go off there apart from it may just retest the 50 EMA here. It's retesting the Gaussian channel, but I don't put a huge amount of weight in the Gaussian on these sort of things. Not in terms of exact levels anyway. VIX had a little bit of a spike recently, but not giving us much. VIX tends to be better for just looking at for me, when the drop's likely to finish. Tends to finish around the 20 or if we're going for a really big drop, tends to be up more around the 35, 36 mark. TLT's up a little bit. Nothing huge there. High yield bonds, it's pushing the top side here. So again, still in this range. Bonds just aren't showing much in terms of which way the market might be going. Skew is still heading up slightly. Looks like it's starting to struggle though. But still up. Looking for that to come down before we see a decent drop on the general market. Copper found a bit of resistance at this level, which I guess would be a reasonable resistance level if you're trading it. If the stock market keeps wanting to go up, I wouldn't expect copper to come down too much more. Maybe down into the 4.5 mark before trying for higher. 4.9 would be the next target. So overall, there's not significant. There's no significant indicators that are suggesting that there's a big correction coming or that we're going to go a lot higher. The market seems really tentative at the moment. So earnings season, I think, kicks off this week, if it hasn't already. And I think earnings season will actually be the big play this year. Some of the biggest stocks and the banks are reporting in the next week or so. Those results could actually drive the overall sentiment in the market. So the money supply is still increasing a little bit as well. So looks like there's a bit of money printing has actually started. Yeah, that's interesting. Something's being propped up, put it that way, I suspect. And yield curve still in that range, nothing really. I mean, obviously we've had a bit of down lately, so a bit of a retrace is to be expected, but yeah, if you're bearish on the market, you really want to see this start to turn down, clear that 1% mark. Again, percentage of stocks above the 50-day average is flat. And to me, that's actually starting to show there might be a little bit of money coming out of the market. Just for the fact that the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 and has been sort of going up recently, but in general, the breadth is pretty terrible, very flat. There might be a little bit of money coming out, but nothing huge at the moment. Japanese yen is still doesn't look like they're intervening yet. If they are, they're doing it in a different way to what they've done it previously. Tends to be a lot more volatile when they do it in the past. Brazilian real finding a bit of resistance at that 20 EMA there, so just be careful of that. Mag 7 finding a little bit of resistance here on the actual Mag 7. So that's interesting because Nvidia's up, so it must be Google and a few of the others, which I think I've got something down here. Amazon's down a little. And it's just grinding up slowly at the moment. Meta. Yeah, Meta's had a bit of a down day. It's just, you could just treat this as a retest of that breakout point. Up is still reasonably likely at the moment on Meta. And that suggests we're probably still going to get a little bit upside on the S&P 500. AMD has just broken this level. So you're probably going to have another upside day on AMD tomorrow, at least retesting that 183, 184, like 183.9, 184. Whether it gets back up to the all-time highs or not, I have to wait and see. Not going to call that at this stage. Don't know what that one is. Hong Kong. So the Hang Seng struggling back below that 200 EMA. Well, there is a lot of underlying stuff in the Chinese economy that isn't great. Real estate in particular. But that was a pretty epic run too. So I think there we've probably retraced. Let's go off this one. Yeah, back down. You'd want it to find some support around this 17.4 mark, I think. If it finds support there, then yeah, it should break out to new highs. We are coming off, I think it's like a 10-year low or something. Yeah, it wasn't. 09 was the last time we were at this sort of level. So that's 15-year low with a double bottom. So it should play out decent if the markets behave, but at the same time, you're in a bit of you've got a potential falling wedge happening here as well. So probably draw it up to there even. With a bit of support around here somewhere. So yeah, if we come down here and break below that, I would suggest the whole world is falling apart at that stage anyway. I mean, not necessarily, but would kind of, it would be on the cards, I would say. That is probably enough. I'll have a quick look at it. So, ETH is pretty much doing what Bitcoin's doing at the moment, but it's doing it at the bottom of this range, which is interesting. People calling for big pumps in ETH for the ETF approvals. Excuse me. I don't think it happens yet, but it looks like it wants to find support in this level, which if ETH does find support here, then it wouldn't surprise me if Bitcoin also finds support around this level. Like this could be a Wyckoff accumulation. So this could just be that fake out to the downside of a Wyckoff if you look at this whole range. We didn't really have a breakout to the upside like you normally would in a Wyckoff distribution. That is a possibility, but yeah, tough call to call it either way at the moment. But at the moment, I think the weight of evidence that I'm seeing is potentially a bit more downside. Um, Again, in the medium term, as in weeks or months, potentially a bit more downside. I just don't see there being that much of a liquidity injection into the system that would actually lead us to go significantly up. This level here, which is a value area high and the top of this vector candle and a previous support point all through here on reasonably high time frames, that is going to be a critical level. So do we get pumps into that? It wouldn't surprise me at all. There's a hell of a lot of liquidity up there. And if we just look at the liquidity maps, this was actually an interesting one. I was looking at this morning. So the order book liquidity delta chart, typically when that is red is when you see movements up in the market. Okay. During those times when it's red, normally. When it switches is when you're typically heading down a little bit further. It's not a perfect indicator, but typically when this is green, you're going down. When it's red, you're going up overall. So the fact that this is still red, it's possible that we do actually see some more upside before we see more downside. And if we look at, let's look at this one. Sorry for the brightness there. I should actually change that to dark theme if I can. If we look at the 1 week liquidation map, you can see that there is a hell of a lot of liquidity up into that sort of 60K zone, which I think if we look at this, yeah, you're talking, that's the level there that we're talking about, at 60,500-ish. Okay. So that's a pretty juicy level for Bitcoin to come back into to try and suck in a lot more longs in here. Does it have enough long orders in this area to want to come to it? Yes, definitely. But don't be surprised if we get a fake out and a push up into these levels. Because whilst this looks bad, the fact that we got a pretty quick bounce out of it suggests that we could actually, there's someone in there buying this up. So the fact that we had that much volume traded and we didn't break to new lows and things like that, that is an indication that we could go back up a bit. And as I say that, it's, whoa, there we go. Did that hit our TP1 level? Yeah, it did. Okay, so looks like we got resolution on that particular move. And all right, interesting. Big wick to the upside there though, so it's obviously got some sellers in that region as well. We could even just chop around for the next couple of days. It looks like the Bulls and the Bears are really starting to fight this out. Like the Bears were definitely in control on this whole move down. I would have said the Bears have been in control pretty much up until about there. and this looks like the bull's starting to take a little bit of control. Could be wrong, but yeah, we'll wait and see. Wait and see who wins out. What was I saying? Oh yeah, liquidity stuff. So this is on Binance on the daily. What did we just hit? 56. So we just come in to here a little bit. Let's refresh that. Yeah. Looks like it just swept a heap from in this zone. Starting to attack it, but yeah, there's definitely longs are coming in preference to shorts at the moment. So it's going to be a tussle. It's going to be a fight, and you're probably going to be wanting to be pretty cautious. With holding trades for too long, given the volume that we're seeing coming through on some of these moves. That was the big drop there, just sucked up all this. Very interestingly, we did have a lot of liquidity come through. People started going short and went short really in pretty decent volume, like volumes we haven't seen for a while at the top here. So there is a fair bit of short interest out there. These shorts got sucked up pretty quickly. So these longs, yeah, looks like it wants this zone here. That's a pretty big gap to jump though. Before going lower, so it'd be interesting. I'm to be honest with you, I'm not getting a massive read either way, apart from the fact that it still looks a bit bearish. Very much going to be shorter time frame being the critical one. We go out to the monthly. As you can see, this is the 60,000 level I was talking about. So there's a fair chunk. And it could come all the way up into that 61.5 on a wick basis. If we come up to there and then close back down below that value area high, that would suggest we're actually coming back down. But yeah, it's not a lot below. So that's kind of why I'm in two minds about this particular market at the moment. There is a lot more liquidity to the upside, and yeah, I think the buying volume that had to come in at this area to reverse this seems to show a bit of commitment to the upside. So yeah, that was a pretty decent retest of that 200 EMA on the 5 minute too there. So be interesting to see if we get through the 800 here. If we do, it'll be a pretty good move to the upside, I would suggest. At least up into the 58k mark. All right, I've rambled for long enough now. I'll catch us later.